Hello, in this video I'm going to show you how to get Xdebug going with Laravel Sail. I've started a new Laravel example application as per the instructions on our website, which also installs Sail. Let me just start the application now. Let me show you that it is now running. I also have created a PhpStorm project with this example application, because we'll be using PhpStorm for debugging. Sail already comes with Xdebug installed, but we do have to enable this. We do this by creating a new environment variable in the .env file. So let me open it and add this line. The thing to add is Sail Xdebug mode. And we want to enable the development aids as well as the debugger. It is also possible to enable Xdebug's other modes here. Let me save this. In order for this new environment variable to take into effect, we need to stop Sail and start it again. We now need to tell PhpStorm to listen for incoming debugging connections. You do that under Run and then start listening for PHP debug connections. Because this is the first time we're going to debug something, I also tend to enable the break at first line in PHP script option to more easily show you that debugging actually works before we even have set a breakpoint. Now all I have to do is reload the Laravel application again to trigger a debugging request. PhpStorm pops up with an incoming connection from Xdebug dialog, where you need to set up your path mappings. Path mappings are used to map a path as exists in the Docker Sail container with your local file system. Let me first accept it and then modify it later to make sure that we map all the paths and not just this resources server file. However, you can see that the debugger already has stopped on this line because you can click on the debugging path where you can then inspect the cookie variables that are set. I will stop this debugging request and modify our path mapping. You do that in File, Settings, and then you search for servers. It has already highlighted Use Path Mappings, which we need to make sure to keep enabled. But we do need to map the paths here. Sail maps your current project directory to var www.html, so we need to add that. And then we can click OK. When we now refresh the page to debug, all the paths should be set up. And indeed, the debugger stopped on the first line. Now we can step through here. Usually you don't want to debug from the first line in your script, but for example a root. Let us now turn off break at first line and enable a breakpoint in our root. In the example application there's of course only one root, but let us set a breakpoint there anyway. You do that by clicking the line number in the margin. Now let's reload the page again and see that a breakpoint triggers. And indeed, the breakpoint has now triggered, which means that you can examine parameters and do single stepping. For example, by clicking on the arrow, you open up the properties for the current objects, which allows you to inspect what's in the router. You can examine current constants. And by clicking the buttons here, you can step over to the next line, step into a calling function, or step out to the calling function. Let's step into the return view here to see what it does. And you can now single step through the code and inspect variables, and so on and so on. When you're done with your debugging session, you can either run towards the end of the program or you can stop it so that the request gets aborted. But let me be nice and run to the end of the request. And here you have it, setting up Sail with Xdebug and PhpStorm. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have learned something. If you enjoyed this video, please click like and subscribe. I'll be back in the future.